Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something absolutely fundamental, understanding how wealth works and, well, how to build it.
Yeah, that's right.
Our guides for this journey are the contrasting experiences of Robert Kiyosaki's Poor Dad and Rich Dad. Think of this not as just a book report, but more like your express lane to grasping core principles of financial independence, stuff that can really change how you see things.
Exactly. We're not just, recounting a story. We're pulling out actionable insights from two really radically different approaches to money.
Right.
Our mission here is to kind of dissect these philosophies, lay bare the crucial differences, and offer you, the listener, a clear path to understanding what truly drives financial success.
Okay, so let's set the scene a bit. We have Poobad, who is Kiyosaki's actual father,
Yeah.
a highly educated guy, believed in the traditional route, get a good education, secure a stable job with benefits, climb the corporate ladder, you know the drill.
Security through the paycheck.
Exactly. Financial security, in his view, came from that steady paycheck.
And then on the other side, we have Rich Dad. This was the father of Kiyosaki's friend.
Hmm.
He didn't have the same formal degrees, but he had this deep practical understanding of how money functions.
Mm.
His whole philosophy centered on financial education, building assets, and crucially, making your money work for you. These are like polar opposite
Yeah.
viewpoints.
Totally different.
And really understanding that tension, that contrast, is key to this whole deep dive, I think.
That central conflict, yeah. The core difference in how these two men saw the world of work and wealth. That's where we really need to dig in. Poor dads saw a good job as the ultimate answer, right? A means to a comfortable, secure life.
Right. Success was measured by salary, job title, career progression, that kind of thing.
But Rich Dad had a completely different framework, didn't he? It wasn't just about the size of the paycheck for him.
No, not at all. It was more about what that paycheck could eventually create. The job wasn't the end goal.
Yeah.
It was potentially just a vehicle,
Yeah,
a starting point, maybe.
precisely. Rich Dad's underlying belief, as the source presents it, was that the ultimate purpose of work should maybe be to gain knowledge and acquire assets, assets that then generate income independently of your direct labor.
Hmm.
He redefined financial success not just by how much you earn, but by how long you could sustain your lifestyle without actively working. That's the real definition of financial freedom he championed.
It's a huge shift in perspective, really.
Mhm.
Poor Dad's model is basically trading your time for money, day in, day out.
Yeah.
Whereas Rich Dad's is about building systems, acquiring
Yes.
things that generate money, sort of automatically, regardless of your immediate time input.
Okay, let's unpack this idea of financial education then, because our sources make it pretty clear that Rich Dad believes schools primarily train people to be employees, to work for money. What's the key distinction he's drawing here?
Well, what's interesting, or maybe provocative, is the assertion that our traditional education system, while obviously valuable for professional skills, often completely overlooks teaching the core mechanics of money itself. It prepares you to earn a wage, yes, but not necessarily how to grow and manage wealth effectively. It's kind of like learning how to swing a hammer, but never being taught how to actually design and build a house.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. And that's where Rich Dad's emphasis on financial literacy comes in, right? This wasn't just basic budgeting or, saving coupons.
No, not much deeper.
It was a much deeper comprehension of assets, liabilities, and, crucially, cash flow, the actual movement of money into and out of your life. Why is this understanding presented as so absolutely critical for achieving financial freedom?
Well, if you think about it, understanding those three elements, assets, liabilities, cash flow, it basically gives you the map to navigate the whole financial landscape.
Okay.
Knowing what truly puts money in your pocket, an
Hmm.
asset, versus what consistently drains it, a liability,
Yeah.
and grasping how money circulates in your own personal economy, your cash flow, that empowers you to make informed choices.
Right, so you're not just guessing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Without this literacy, you're essentially making financial decisions in the dark. You're
Yeah.
much more vulnerable to debt, getting stuck in that cycle of just needing the next paycheck.
Right, so it's not just about making more money, it's about understanding where that money is going and how to strategically direct it to actually build wealth.
Precisely.
This leads us pretty naturally to another core principle, the difference between working to learn and simply working for a paycheck. Our sources really highlight the importance of prioritizing acquiring valuable skills, even if the initial salary isn't, top tier. What kind of skills are we talking about here? What's so valuable in the long run?
The sources specifically point to skills like sales, marketing, investing, and just the fundamentals of running a business.
Sure.
Think of it this way. These aren't just job descriptions. They're fundamental capabilities that allow you to generate income and build wealth in lots of different ways. Sales and marketing help you connect with customers, move products or ideas. Investing knowledge lets you grow your capital. Entrepreneurial skills empower you to create and manage your own income-producing ventures.
And the underlying idea then is that by focusing on developing these skills, maybe even taking a lower paying job initially that offers that kind of training or experience, you're making a strategic investment in your future earning potential and your financial independence.
Yeah, you're building your own toolkit,
Yeah,
essentially.
right.
The focus shifts from just the immediate financial reward to long-term financial power. These skills become your building blocks for greater control and ultimately liberation from relying solely on an employer. You're developing your own internal, wealth-generating capacity.
This then directly connects with Rich Dad's famous golden rule about assets and liabilities. This is a concept our sources really drill down on.
Yeah.
The rich focus on buying assets, while the poor and middle class tend to accumulate liabilities that they often mistakenly think are assets. Let's clarify this crucial distinction again. In this context, what exactly defines an asset versus a liability?
Okay, the fundamental difference, as our sources really emphasize, it all comes down to cash flow, direction of the money.
Right.
An asset is something that puts money into your pocket,
Yeah.
usually on a regular basis. Think of rental properties generating income, stocks paying dividends, or maybe a successful side business throwing off profits.
Okay.
Conversely, a liability is something that consistently takes money out of your pocket, like mortgage payments on your own house, which doesn't typically generate income for you, car loans, credit card debt, things that drain your resources.
So the critical understanding isn't just about owning something tangible like a house or a fancy car, but really analyzing its financial impact on your monthly cash flow. A big, expensive house might feel like a significant asset, and it is in one sense. But if it's constantly draining your resources through mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, upkeep, it's functioning as a liability in this framework.
That's a really key insight from the sources. They highlight that many well-meaning individuals, particularly in the middle class, focus on acquiring these kinds of liabilities,
Yeah.
often believing they're building wealth simply because they possess something valuable on paper. But Rich Dad's core message is that, true, sustainable wealth is built by actively and consistently acquiring income-generating assets, those things that actually increase your financial inflow month after month, year after year.
This understanding of assets and liabilities naturally leads us to the power of entrepreneurship and investing. Our sources suggest that the traditional concept of job security, which was, so central to Poor Dad's thinking, is actually maybe a myth in the modern economy.
Yeah, that's a strong claim.
Instead, true financial security comes from having control over your own income streams.
This really pushes back against conventional wisdom about careers and financial stability, doesn't it?
It does.
The sources strongly challenge the idea that solely relying on an employer provides genuine, lasting security. Instead, they advocate for venturing into entrepreneurship, creating your own businesses, however small they might start, or strategically investing in other income-producing ventures, things like stocks, real estate, maybe even intellectual property.
Right, diversifying.
Yeah, ways to build multiple controllable income streams,
Yeah.
not putting all your eggs in one basket, essentially.
And the real power of this approach, as our sources point out, is the potential for creating passive income money that works for you even while you're not actively physically working. So this is the ultimate goal, isn't it, according to this philosophy?
Precisely. If we tie this back to Rich Dad's definition of financial freedom, that ability to live without having to work, passive income, is the engine that gets you there.
Right.
It allows you to escape that paycheck-to-paycheck cycle, or even just the high-earn or high-spending cycle,
Yeah.
and it provides a crucial financial safety net. It gives you options.
Now, our sources also delve into the psychology of money, which I find really fascinating. It's often underestimated, I think, in personal finance discussions. It talks about how our emotions, particularly the fear of losing money, and also the desire, maybe even greed, for the perceived security of a steady job, how these can profoundly influence our financial decisions.
Yeah, what's so insightful here is how these deeply ingrained emotions can keep people locked into what Kiyosaki calls the rat race. The fear of stepping outside the familiar employment model, combined with the allure, the comfort of a predictable income. It can prevent individuals from even exploring opportunities for greater long-term financial growth, even if those opportunities involve just some degree of calculated risk.
And the sources suggest that overcoming these emotional barriers, especially that fear of taking well-considered risks, is actually a prerequisite for achieving significant financial progress. It's not about being reckless, obviously,
Like, not at all.
but about being willing to step outside your comfort zone and actively explore avenues for acquiring those income-generating assets we talked about.
That emphasis on calculated risk is absolutely key.
Yeah.
It's not about blindly gambling or making impulsive financial moves based on hype.
Right.
It's about educating yourself first, understanding the potential risks and rewards of different opportunities, whether it's starting a business, investing in stocks, buying a rental property, and then acting thoughtfully, strategically.
Hmm.
The sources implied that a major roadblock to financial advancement is often just allowing fear to paralyze us into inaction, just staying stuck because it feels safer.
Which leads perfectly into the next crucial point,
No.
the importance of taking action. Our sources emphatically state that acquiring financial knowledge is only the first step. You can read every book, listen to every deep dive like this one, but if you don't actually do anything with that knowledge, it remains purely theoretical, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This is such a pivotal point. So many people grasp the concepts assets versus liabilities, passive income, the value of investing, yet they never take that initial plunge. They never actually buy that first stock or start that small side hustle or look into that rental property.
Yeah.
The sources stress the absolute necessity of starting, even if it's small, just getting into the game and gaining that real-world experience. You can't learn to swim just by reading about it.
And, just as importantly, learning from the inevitable mistakes, right? The path to financial independence isn't going to be some smooth, straight, upward line.
Definitely not.
There will be setbacks, deals that fall through, investments that don't pan out as expected, but the sources frame these not as failures to be ashamed of, but as invaluable learning opportunities. They're actually essential for long-term growth.
Exactly right. The sources really encourage a mindset of continuous learning and adaptation. The financial world, markets, opportunities, they're constantly evolving. So a willingness to learn from both your successes and your missteps is absolutely paramount. You adjust, you pivot, you keep moving forward.
Okay, now shifting our focus just slightly, our sources also touch upon the idea of giving back and contributing to the financial well-being of others. This might seem a bit unexpected in a discussion focused on individual wealth accumulation. How does this fit into the overall philosophy presented?
Yeah, it's an interesting layer. What's fascinating here is the perspective that wealth creation isn't solely this isolated individual pursuit. The sources suggest that by actively helping others become more financially literate, perhaps by teaching, mentoring, or creating opportunities, and by contributing positively to society in other ways, you actually cultivate a more fertile environment for your own sustained success as well. It's about creating a positive ripple effect, you know?
So it's not purely altruistic then. There's almost a strategic element woven into it. By empowering others financially, you're potentially fostering more opportunities, maybe creating future partners or customers, and contributing to a stronger overall economic landscape, which can ultimately benefit everyone, including yourself.
That seems to be a key insight, yes.
Hmm.
The underlying principle could be seen as like a rising tide lifts all boats.
Right.
When you contribute to the financial education and empowerment of others, it can lead to unexpected reciprocal benefits and perhaps a more resilient, interconnected form of wealth creation in the long run. It's less zero-sum.
Okay, finally, as we start to kind of wrap up our main discussion here, let's revisit the overarching mindset shift that these sources are really advocating for. It's this fundamental transition, isn't it? From the traditional approach of solely working for money, just trading your hours for dollars, to a more proactive, strategic approach of actively making your money work for you, primarily through asset acquisition.
Precisely. It involves a deep reevaluation of our relationship with both money and work. It fundamentally challenges that long-held belief that just securing a stable job is the ultimate financial destination. And instead, it champions a proactive, almost entrepreneurial approach to building financial independence. And the tools are the strategic accumulation of income-generating assets and the continuous development of those valuable wealth-building skills we discussed: sales, marketing, investing, understanding business.
So it's not necessarily saying that having a traditional job is inherently bad or wrong.
No, not necessary.
But it strongly emphasizes that it shouldn't be viewed as the only path or maybe the ultimate ceiling for your financial aspirations and potential.
Exactly. The source is really presented as a conscious choice. You can
Mm.
continue down the path of solely exchanging your time for money, which is what most people are taught to do.
Mm.
Or you can decide to take the reins, learn the fundamental rules of the financial game as Wishgad saw them, and begin actively building a future where your money is working just as hard for you as you work for it, maybe even harder.
Okay, so we've really dug deep into these contrasting worldviews, poor dad versus rich dad. We've explored everything from the critical importance of financial education, really understanding assets and liabilities,
Here's cash flow.
the power of entrepreneurship and investing, the whole psychology of money, fear, and greed,
Uh-huh.
and even the significance of giving back. The core message, it really boils down to that fundamental shift in mindset, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And ultimately, it's about recognizing that achieving financial independence, according to this philosophy, isn't some unattainable fantasy reserved for a lucky few. It's presented as a tangible skill set and a specific mindset that can be learned, cultivated, and actively applied through conscious effort and consistent action.
Okay, so for you, our listener, as you've absorbed these contrasting philosophies presented in our sources today, maybe take a moment to consider which of these approaches resonates most deeply with your current thinking about your own finances?
Hmm. Yeah. Good question.
And perhaps more importantly, what small but concrete, actionable step might you consider taking, maybe even this week or this month, based on these insights? Something to further explore the world of building assets and making your money work harder for you.
Even just starting the research is an action.
Exactly. It's all about taking that first step, even if it's simply a shift in how you view your financial landscape going forward.